Sati said, "There is a mountain called Mandara adorned with cloud-like peaks. It is the best of mountains and is covered all over with intertwining herbs. There countless birds pour forth their melodies, and beasts of prey roam about. The gods, the Apsaras and the Kinnaras visit the place. Upwards it rises 11,000 yojanas, and descends downwards as much. The gods wanted to tear it up and use it as a churning rod, but failing to do so came to Vishnu and Brahman who were sitting together and said unto them, Devise some efficient scheme, consider, ye gods, how Mandara may be dislodged for our good. Sati continued, O son of Brigu. Vishnu with Brahman assented to it. And the lotus-eyed one, Vishnu, laid the hard task on the mighty Ananta, the prince of snakes. The powerful Ananta, directed thereto both by Brahman and Narayana, O Brahmana, tore up the mountain with the woods thereon and with the denizens of those woods. And the gods came to the shore of the ocean with Ananta and addressed the ocean, saying, O ocean, we have come to churn thy waters for obtaining nectar. The ocean replied, Be it so, as I shall not go without a share of it. I am able to bear the prodigious agitation of my waters set up by the mountain. The gods then went to the king of tortoises and said to him, O tortoise king, thou wilt have to hold the mountain on thy back. The tortoise king agreed, and Indra contrived to place the mountain on the former's back. And the gods and the Asuras made of Mandara a churning staff and Vasuki the cord, and set about churning the deep for Amrita. The Asuras held Vasuki by the hood and the gods held him by the tail. And Ananta, who was on the side of the gods, at intervals raised the snake's hood and suddenly lowered it. And in consequence of the stretch Vasuki received at the hands of the gods and the Asuras, black vapors with flames issued from his mouth. These turned into clouds charged with lightning, poured showers that refreshed the tired gods, and flowers that also fell on all sides of the celestials from the trees on the whirling Mandara refreshed them. Then, O Brahmana, out of the deep came a tremendous roar like unto the roar of the clouds at the universal dissolution. Diverse aquatic animals being crushed by the great mountain gave up the ghost in the salt waters. And many denizens of the lower regions and the world of Varuna were killed. Large trees with birds on the whirling Mandara were torn up by the roots, and fell into the water. The mutual friction of those trees also produced fires that blazed up frequently. The mountain thus looked like a mass of dark clouds charged with lightning. O Brahmana, the fire spread, and consumed the lions, elephants and other creatures that were on the mountain. Then Indra extinguished that fire by pouring down heavy showers. After the churning, O Brahmana, had gone on for some time, gummy exudations of various trees and herbs vested with the properties of Amrita mingled with the waters of the ocean. And the celestials attained to immortality by drinking of the water, mixed with those gums and with the liquid extract of gold. By degrees, the milky water of the agitated deep turned into clarified butter by virtue of those gums and juices. But nectar did not appear even then. The gods came before the boon-granting Brahman seated on his seat and said, Sire, we are spent up, we have no strength left to churn further. Nectar hath not yet arisen, so that now we have no resource save Narayana. On hearing them, Brahman said to Narayana, O Lord, condescend to grant the gods strength to churn the deep afresh. Then Narayana, agreeing to grant their various prayers, said, Ye wise ones, I grant you sufficient strength. Go put the mountain in position again and churn the water. Re-established thus in strength, the gods recommenced churning. After a while, the mild moon of 1,000 rays emerged from the ocean. Thereafter sprung forth Lakshmi dressed in white, then Soma, then the white steed, and then the celestial gem Kaustubha, which graces the breast of Narayana. Then Lakshmi, Soma and the steed, fleet as the mind, all came before the gods on high. Then arose the divine Dhanvantari himself with the white vessel of nectar in his hand. And seeing him the Asuras set up a loud cry, saying, It be ours. And at length rose the great elephant Airavata, of huge body and with 2 pair of white tusks. And him took Indra the wielder of the thunderbolt. But with the churning still going on, the poison Kalakuta appeared at last. Engulfing the earth it suddenly blazed up like a fire attended with fumes. And by the scent of the fearful Kalakuta, the 3 worlds were stupefied. And then Shiva, being solicited by Brahman, swallowed that poison for the safety of the creation. The divine Mahesvara held it in his throat, and it is said that from that time he is called Nilkantha, blue-throated. Seeing all these wondrous things, the Asuras were filled with despair, and got themselves prepared for entering into hostilities with the gods for the possession of Lakshmi and Amrita. Thereupon Narayana called his bewitching Maya, elusive power, to his aid, and assuming the form of an enticing female, coquette with the Danavas. The Danavas and the Daityas, charmed with her exquisite beauty and grace, lost their reason and unanimously placed the Amrita in the hands of that fair damsel. So ends the 18th section in the Astika Parva of the Adi Parva. Astika Parva continued. Sati said, then the Daityas and the Danaas, equipped with first-class armors and various weapons, attacked the gods. In the meantime, the valiant Lord Vishnu, in the form of an enchantress accompanied by Nara, deceived the mighty Danavas and took away the Amrita from their hands. And all the gods at that time of great fright drank the Amrita with delight, receiving it from Vishnu. And while the gods were partaking of it, after which they had so much hankered, a Danava named Rahu was also drinking it among them in the guise of a god. And when the Amrita had reached Rahu's throat, only Surya and Soma recognized him and intimated the fact to the god. And Narayana instantly cut off with his discus the well-adorned head of the Danava who was drinking the Amrita without permission. And the huge head of the Danava, cut off by the discus and resembling a mountain peak, then rose up to the sky and began to utter dreadful cries. And the Danava's headless trunk, falling upon the ground and rolling thereon, made the earth tremble with her mountains, forests and islands. And from that time there is a long-standing quarrel between Rahu's head and Surya and Soma. And to this day it swalloweth Surya and Soma during solar and lunar eclipses. Then Narayana, quitting his enchanting female form and hurling many terrible weapons at the Danavas, made them tremble. And thus on the shores of the saltwater sea commenced the dreadful battle of the gods and the Asuras. And sharp-pointed javelins and lances and various weapons by thousands began to be discharged on all sides. And mangled with the discus and wounded with swords, darts and maces, the Asuras in large numbers vomited blood and lay prostrate on the earth, cut off from the trunks with sharp double-edged swords, heads adorned with bright gold, fell continually on the field of battle. Their bodies, drenched in gore, the great Asuras lay dead everywhere. It seemed as if red-dyed mountain peaks lay scattered all around. When the sun rose in his splendor, thousands of warriors struck one another with weapons, and cries of distress were heard everywhere. The warriors fighting at a distance from one another brought one another down by sharp iron missiles, and those fighting at close quarters slew one another with blows of their fists. And the air was filled with shrieks of distress. Everywhere were heard the alarming sounds: cut, pierce, at them, hurl down, advance. And when the battle was raging fiercely, Nara and Narayana entered the field. And Narayana, seeing the celestial bow in the hand of Nara, called to mind his own weapon, the Danava-destroying discus. And lo, the discus, Sudarsana, destroyer of enemies like to Agni in effulgence and dreadful in battle, came from the sky as soon as thought of. And when it came, Narayana, of fierce energy, possessing arms like the trunk of an elephant, hurled with great force that weapon of extraordinary luster, effulgent as blazing fire, dreadful and capable of destroying hostile towns. And that discus, blazing like the fire that consumeth all things at the end of Yuga, hurled with force from the hands of Narayana, and falling constantly everywhere, destroyed the Daityas and the Danavas by thousands. Sometimes it blazed like fire and consumed them all. Sometimes it struck them down as it coursed through the sky, and sometimes, falling on the earth, it drank their lifeblood like a goblin. On the other hand, the Danavas, white as the clouds from which the rain hath dropped, possessing great strength and bold hearts, ascended the sky, and by hurling down thousands of mountains, continually harassed the gods. And those dreadful mountains, like masses of clouds, with their trees and flat tops, falling from the sky, collided with one another and produced a tremendous roar. And when thousands of warriors shouted without intermission in the field of battle, and mountains with the woods thereon began to fall around, the earth with her forests trembled. Then the divine Nara appeared at the scene of the dreadful conflict between the Asuras and the Ganas, the followers of Rudra, and reducing to dust those rocks by means of his gold-headed arrows, he covered the heavens with dust. Thus discomfited by the gods, and seeing the furious discus scouring the fields of heaven like a blazing flame, the mighty Danavas entered the bowels of the earth, while others plunged into the sea of salt waters. And having gained the victory, the gods offered due respect to Mandara and placed him again on his own base. And the nectar-bearing gods made the heavens resound with their shouts, and went to their own abodes. And the gods, on returning to the heavens, rejoiced greatly, and Indra and the other deities made over to Narayana the vessel of Amrita for careful keeping. And so ends the 19th section in the Astika Parva of the Adi Parva.